In every generation, there comes a moment when fear stands tall, and faith must rise taller. This is the story of a shepherd boy who faced a giant and changed history forever. The valley of Elah trembled with the sound of footsteps, not just any footsteps, but the thunderous steps of a giant. Goliath, the Philistine champion, 9 feet tall, armor gleaming like fire, his voice shaking the hills. Each morning, for 40 days, he stood before the armies of Israel and shouted, "Choose a man to fight me. If he wins, we'll be your servants, but if I win, you'll serve us." And every day, Israel's warriors looked at him, and fear silenced their courage. King Saul, mighty as he once was, could no longer lift his sword. The people's hearts melted within them. No one dared to step forward, but far from the battlefield, in the quiet hills of Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David sang songs to God. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't trained for battle, but he knew one thing: his God was faithful. When lions came for his sheep, he struck them down. When bears attacked, he stood his ground. Not with fear but with faith. One day, David's father Jesse said, "Take this bread and grain to your brothers at the battlefield. See how they are." David obeyed, never knowing that this simple act of obedience would lead him into destiny. When David reached the camp, he heard the giant's voice echo through the valley. His brothers trembled, the soldiers backed away, and the young shepherd asked, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They mocked him. They said, "You're just a boy. Go back to your sheep." But David's spirit burned within him. He had seen what God could do in secret, and now he was ready to see it in public. Scene 4. Before the king. Scene shifts. David stands before Saul in the royal tent. When King Saul heard about David's courage, he called for him. And when David stood before the king, he said, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul looked at him, young, small, untrained, and said, "You are not able to fight him. You are just a boy." But David replied, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this giant too." And in that moment, faith spoke louder than fear. Saul gave David his armor, but it was too heavy. David took it off. He chose instead to walk with the only armor he ever trusted: the presence of God. David went down to the stream and picked up 5 smooth stones, just 5. Not because he doubted God, but because he was prepared. He placed them in his shepherd's pouch, held his sling, and walked toward the battlefield. The crowd watched, stunned. A shepherd against a warrior. Faith against fear. A boy against the giant. Goliath laughed when he saw David. "Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods. But David looked up, eyes burning with courage, and said, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, the Lord will deliver you into my hands." And with that, David ran not away, but toward the giant. He placed a stone in his sling, swung it once, twice, 3 times, and released. WHSSSH. The stone flew through the air, guided by divine amen, struck Goliath right on the forehead. The giant fell, the earth shook, and silence covered the valley. David stood victorious, not because of his strength, but because of his faith. When the Philistines saw their champion fall, they ran. Israel's army rose with a roar. To battle that began with fear ended with faith. David lifted Goliath's sword and declared, "The Lord does not save with sword or spear. The battle belongs to the Lord." That day, the name of David echoed across Israel. But he never forgot it wasn't his stone that won the battle. It was God's hand. You see, every one of us faces a Goliath, a challenge that seems too big, too powerful, too impossible. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's failure, maybe it's something you've been running from for years. But the story of David reminds us of this truth. It's not the size of your giant that matters, it's the size of your faith. When you trust God, He gives you the courage to face what others run from. And when you step forward with faith, heaven steps forward with you. Don't wait for your fear to disappear. Step forward in faith and watch God make your giants fall. Because the same God who helped David is the same God who can help you. The battle is not yours. It belongs to the Lord. This is not just a story about a boy and a giant, it is a story about you and your God.